My parents kicked me out at 16 to make room for my pregnant twin sister. Now they're being sued for stealing my inheritance and lost in court. The same house they tried to claim is legally mine. They haven't spoken to me since the verdict, and I don't care. I built my life from scratch. They lost the one thing they valued most: control. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Growing up, my parents adored my twin sister Sarah and treated me like a mistake they couldn't return. I tried harder in school, kept my room spotless, and even cooked dinner sometimes hoping they'd notice. But it was always Sarah's smile, Sarah's ballet recitals, Sarah's drama. I was the background noise to her spotlight. My only escape was weekends with Grandpa Hal until cancer took him. That was the last time I felt seen by family. Sarah always got what she wanted. When she cried, she got a puppy. When I cried, I got grounded for acting up. She got a bedroom makeover. I got hand-me-downs. I remember the day she told Mom I broke her necklace. She had lost it. I got slapped and grounded. I was 12. From then on, I stopped defending myself. It was useless. They had already picked a favorite. And it wasn't the kid with bruises. After Grandpa Hal died, everything changed. Sarah got pregnant at 16, and instead of punishment, she got a baby shower in my bedroom. I came home from school to find my stuff on the porch. My mom said, "She needs space. You'll figure it out." I slept in a tent in the backyard that winter. I still had finals. I still tried. I was the disposable child. Not even worth a couch to sleep on. I started working after school at a gas station just to afford food. No one asked where I was sleeping. Sarah drove the family car to parties. I walked 3 miles to work. One night, I came home to find my tent slashed open. Dad shrugged. "Maybe don't leave things lying around." I ate cold noodles from a can that night under the stars, pretending they cared, but I knew then I was entirely on my own. At school, teachers noticed I looked tired, but I lied, said I was studying late. I couldn't risk them calling home. They might found out I wasn't allowed inside. One day, my English teacher offered me a granola bar. I cried. Just a granola bar, and I broke down. I cleaned up in the locker room, hid my things in bushes. No one knew. I had no friends left. No one wanted to associate with the charity case. One evening, I wandered into Delaney's bakery. It smelled like warmed Mr. Delaney found me eyeing the display and offered me a day-old roll. I tried to pay with crumpled coins. He waved it off. "You hungry or proud?" he asked. I said both. He let me sweep the floor that night. I walked away with a sandwich, $5, and a sliver of dignity. It was the first kindness I'd felt in over a year. I showed up at the bakery every morning before school and every evening after. Mr. Delaney paid me under the table, fed me real meals, and offered the cot in his storage room. I accepted. I balanced school, work, and hiding where I lived. One day I asked him why he helped me. He just said, "Someone once did the same for me." That storage room became my safe haven, my first true home. By graduation, I had saved enough to rent a studio apartment. Mr. Delaney taught me baking and helped me get my GED when school became impossible. I passed the test clutching Grandpa Hal's dog tag. I framed that certificate and hung it beside the cot. It wasn't just paper, it was proof I'd made it out alone. I never invited my parents, they never asked, but I knew I'd earned something they could never steal: pride. With time, Mr. Delaney made me partner in the bakery. I invested everything. We expanded into catering, started turning real profit. I handled the books, deliveries, hiring. At 23, I bought my own small house, not fancy but mine. I painted the walls myself. Grandpa Hal's mug sat on my windowsill. I slept on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by peace. No yelling, no judgment, just me, and the life I earned through sweat and stubbornness. I didn't hear from my parents for years. Then one spring Sunday, they showed up on my porch. Mom, Dad, Sarah, her husband, and 2 kids. No call, no warning. "We're moving in," Mom said. Like it was owed. I laughed. It wasn't funny. It was shocking. My home was theirs, they claimed. Grandpa meant this for family, she argued. I stood in the doorway blocking them. "He did," I said, "and I'm the only family left." They didn't back down. Sarah tried guilt. Mom cried. A dad got loud. I called the police, not to arrest them, just to document. The officer told them to leave. As they drove away, Mom rolled down the window. "You'll regret this when we sue." I didn't respond. I closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. That night, I rechecked my deed, Grandpa's will, every document. They were mine. I had to be ready for war. 2 weeks later, I was served court papers. Sarah and my parents were suing for the house, claiming it was always intended for family use and accusing me of forging Grandpa's will. They had a lawyer. I had panic. I called Mr. Delaney. He said, "You have truth on your side." But truth didn't pay legal fees. I sold my car, took on more bakery shifts, and found a lawyer who believed me. It began. Their lawyer submitted a revised version of the will, one where the house passed to my parents, but the font was off, the notary signature was smeared, and the date, after Grandpa had already died. My lawyer caught it immediately. We subpoenaed the original will from the bank's vault. It named me sole heir. Suddenly, my family went quiet in court. I saw Mom's hand tremble. Sarah looked down. It wasn't over, but it shifted everything. In depositions, their lies unraveled. Sarah claimed she helped Grandpa with his medical care she hadn't visited in years. Dad insisted he maintained the house. He'd never stepped foot in it since the funeral. Mom said Grandpa promised the house for Bally. Was it before or after he cut you out of the will? My lawyer asked to silence. I watched the room shift. Even the judge leaned forward. Intrigued, their performance cracked, but the damage they caused still burned. I submitted every receipt, letter, and message Grandpa had written me. Photos of us together, birthday cards, a bakery apron he embroidered for me, to my favorite grandson who became the son I never had. It read. The judge examined it. My lawyer placed it beside their fake will. The contrast was brutal. When court recessed, Sarah looked straight at me. "You always thought you were better," she hissed. "No," I replied. "Just not a thief." They brought in a character witness, my old school principal. I froze, but to my shock, he testified on my behalf. He was quiet, hardworking, came to school exhausted but never late. The judge raised an eyebrow. The family's strategy was unraveling. My lawyer whispered, "They underestimated your story." I held my breath. Years of neglect were finally spoken aloud in a room that mattered. For the first time, I wasn't the problem, I was the proof. My lawyer uncovered a bank account opened in my name when I was 10 by Grandpa Hal. It had been emptied the month after his funeral. Withdrawn by Beverly, my mother, for household expenses, she said on the stand. But the withdrawals were traced to Sarah's wedding, car payments, and a vacation in Aruba. The judge's face hardened. This isn't just a civil matter, he said. That moment pierced deeper than any insult. This stole my future. The local paper caught wind of the court case. Bakery owner sued by family over inherited home. The headline read, Mr. Delaney framed it and placed it in the shop window. Customers brought cookies, hugs, and kind words. One woman handed me a photo of Grandpa Hal fixing her fence. He'd helped everyone. The community rallied. My family lost their grip, not just on the house, but their reputation. Their cruelty had gone public, and people remembered. During final arguments, their lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive. You refused to share out of spite. My lawyer stood and said. He refused to reward abuse. Then, he read Grandpa's last handwritten note. Tyson, this is your home. No one else earned it. The courtroom fell silent. Even Sarah's husband avoided her gaze. I looked at the judge, who met my eyes with something close to empathy. For once, truth didn't feel like a gamble. The verdict came faster than I expected. The judge ruled the house was mine. All claims dismissed. But he didn't stop there. He referred Beverly for criminal investigation over the stolen account. My parents' faces drained of color. Sarah stormed out before the gavel dropped. I sat frozen as the courtroom emptied. Mr. Delaney patted my shoulder. It's over, he whispered. But it wasn't just about a house, it was about finally being believed. The next day, I found a note taped to my front door. No signature, just you ruined this family. I recognized Mom's handwriting. I left it untouched, like a dead thing. Instead, I unlocked my door, walked inside, and made coffee. Grandpa Hal's mug was still on the shelf. I held it, hands steady. That note didn't rattle me. It confirmed everything. I wasn't the one who ruined anything. I was just the first to stop pretending. Weeks later, Beverly was formally charged with financial fraud. I didn't attend the arraignment. I didn't need to see her in handcuffs. The newspapers handled that part. What mattered was the phone call I got from the bank. They restored what remained of Grandpa's account to me, a few $1,000s, but it felt like more, like closure, like his trust in me confirmed. I deposited it, then took Grandpa's old flannel shirt to the bakery. Sarah messaged me once, a single sentence, we were kids, you should've understood. I stared at the screen for a long time, then I typed, so was I, and no one understood me. I never sent it. I deleted the thread. Some truths don't need to be shared, they just need to be known. Her silence after that was louder than any fight. It wasn't peace, but it was distance, and I needed both to move forward. Frank, Mr. Delaney, asked if I'd consider buying into full ownership. You've earned more than half, he said. I cried in the back room. Quietly, while frosting cupcakes, then I said yes. We signed the paperwork 2 weeks later. I put Grandpa Hal's flannel in the office drawer. It felt right. Like the bakery wasn't just a job, it was the family business I'd always dreamed of, even if it started in crumbs and grief. Especially because it did. One Sunday, an old woman came in holding a faded photo of Grandpa Hal. She said, he once paid my rent when my son was sick. We cried together. I gave her a box of pastries for free. She tried to pay. I shook my head. He helped you. How I get to that moment stitched something in me. My story wasn't just about surviving cruelty. It was about continuing kindness. That's what Grandpa would wanted. I hosted a fundraiser for foster youth, partnering with the local shelter. We raised over $3,000. The bakery was packed. People shared stories, laughed, cried. One kid asked if I had parents. I hesitated, then said, not anymore, I have community instead. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. That night, I stood in the doorway of my house, lights glowing behind me, and finally saw it not as a fortress but as home. The bakery won a community award. I was invited to speak. I wore Grandpa's tie, stiff with age but full of memory. I kept it short. This isn't about pastries, it's about second chances. I was left outside. Now I opened doors. The applause felt like warmth on my skin. Somewhere in the crowd, Mr. Delaney clapped slow and steady. My eyes stung. Not from pain this time, but from the rare soft feeling of being seen. I wake up in silence now. Not the kind that hurt but the kind that heals. No footsteps stomping above me, no shouting through thin walls, just quiet. I brew coffee in Grandpa's mug and sit by the window. Some mornings, I still expect a knock, a demand, a guilt trip, but none comes. That's the peace I fought for. I'm not waiting for love from people who chose control. I'm just living, and that's enough for me. When people ask about my family, I say, they're part of the past. That's not bitterness, it's boundary. I used to think healing meant reconciliation, but some doors are best kept closed. I carry their absence like a scar visible, but no longer bleeding. The bakery, my home, this life I built, those are the family I chose. The love I needed came not from blood, but from kindness. That's where I belong. That's who I became. Sometimes I pass by my old high school and pause. I think of that tired kid hiding homework in bushes. I wish I could tell him, hold on, it gets better. You'll bake bread with laughter in your chest. You'll decorate cakes and lives, you'll sleep warm, you'll be enough. That kid didn't disappear. He just grew. He still walks with me, steady and unashamed. We made it together, and we're never going back outside. Beverly was sentenced to community service and restitution. No jail, but public shame. That was enough. Sarah moves states. We haven't spoken. I keep the court ruling in a drawer, never opened, but always there. A quiet reminder that truth can win eventually. I didn't seek revenge. I sought freedom, and I found it. In flour and fire and peace, I painted the bakery's back wall with a mural. Grandpa Hal holding a tray of bread, smiling. People leave notes beneath it. He helped me. I miss him. Thank you. I read them sometimes and cry, not from grief, but gratitude. His kindness outlived him, through me, through dough, sweat, and truth. That legacy matters more than anything I lost. Today, I lock up the bakery, walk home, and sit on my porch. No fear, no hiding, just me, a cup of coffee, and the sunset. I don't look over my shoulder. I don't brace for impact. I just exist, fully. I built this life alone, and every brick of it says the same thing: I was worth saving. I still am. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.